Hello, everyone. Russell's here. Welcome to another episode of Defining Your Niche podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with David Hori. He's a business buyer, coach, and the founder of Topline Operators. We're just going to have a conversation. We'll ask David a couple of questions, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say. David, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, Russell. Appreciate you having me, and I'm excited to jump into this.
All right, man. I really appreciate you coming in. I know your time is valuable. You're a father and a business owner, but we're gonna hear more about that later on in the show. So thank you for being here, David. Let's start the conversation by you taking a few minutes and just tell us about yourself. Tell us about your business. Tell us about your personal story and how you got into Topline Operators.
Sure. So I guess I won't bore you with the whole history. We'll focus on the most recent 10 years.
Recent 10 years, it is.
Yeah, let's do that. Keep it short and sweet. In the last 10 years, I found myself in the world of VC-funded startups. I am someone, I think like you, that has an entrepreneurial spirit, likes to move fast, be innovative. And so VC startups was a place I really thrived in. And God blessed me in that he partnered me with several founders, 3 actually, who had not just an idea and funding, but something that we could scale together that ultimately resulted in 3 exits in 10 years.
Wow, awesome.
So yes, amazing on paper, amazing experience, an opportunity of a lifetime times 3. And if I can be honest with you,
please,
it wasn't life-changing for me. It was positive, very positive, but not life-changing. And so that got me thinking, how do I have this outsized return for all of the time I'm spending growing these businesses? And that led me down the path of acquisition. I need to be the founder and investor in order to have these outsized opportunities in some kind of exit scenario.
Right.
And so I'm looking at now, how do I buy a business that already exists? I've started 3 from scratch. That's very hard, very risky. How do I start it? How do I buy something that's already working reasonably well, apply my scaling expertise to it, and grow something that's mine? And that's how I got into the world of mergers and acquisitions.
Awesome, man. Awesome. What a story. It's interesting. You said that you would rather start a business, or you would rather purchase a business, versus starting up a business. I come from my background personally. I started lots of businesses in my life, never purchased a business. So I know all the struggles on the other side of the spectrum. But you being on the other side, where you actually acquire businesses, and now you're teaching my understanding, how to buy businesses. I know you and I were part of the Carl's Allen Mastermind as well, where we learn and when we teach other how to acquire existing cash flow in businesses. So if I could take you back to your first deal, the first one out of 3, right? What were the lessons that you learned doing that deal, and how does that change your mindset as far as which way you want to go?
Yeah. So thinking about that first, I had the opportunity to work with an amazing CEO, Michelle Feaster, and she, I think, did a better job than just about anybody I've personally experienced at bringing people around a problem and building a culture where you can really be highly transparent. And the advantage of that is that you get to bring everybody's genius to bear around a problem. And I think sometimes founders feel this pressure to insulate their company from bad news or challenges. They don't want to distract the team. Right. And that was kind of the tipping point in me realizing there's so much value in being able to say, there is a problem. This is where my find it and face it mentality comes from. There's a problem. Here's some ideas I have around solving it. What else can we be doing? What else should I be thinking of? And involving and including the team in that solution. And that was a major tipping point.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, the other question that I'm dying to ask you is, when you deal with the owners of 7, 8-figure companies, what is the biggest misconception the founders have about their business? What is their business actually worth?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that I could draw from. One of the things, though, is this concept that if I stayed in my business and worked full time for a few years, I could get the dollar figure that you're offering me for my business. And so that tells me one thing, that they don't really have dollar figure associated with time. And time is the one thing you and I cannot buy. We can't buy it. And so I was chatting with a business owner recently who said, if I just stayed 4 more years, I would have that. So why would I sell to you? well, what is 4 years of your life, helping your mother who is, having some challenges and she lives in Spain and like that is worth something.
Of
And it
course.
would be tough for me to ascribe a dollar value to the same scenario in my life. So I think, they don't value their time is the short answer. The other thing I see is recognizing that they've built something for decades that relies on them. And that drastically reduces the value that
The
I can
value.
offer at least somebody for their business if they're heavily involved, that the business depends on them exclusively. And it's really about creating teams and processes in a business that can run without the owner or with minimal involvement that drive and elevate value.
That's a very, very important point you just made. And actually, I was recently listening to a podcast with Patrick Bet-David. He's a business owner out of Fort Lauderdale who recently exited his insurance business for a very substantial sum and life-changing, I would say, opportunity. And he was saying that he was offered 5 times the EBITDA before he put all the systems and in his business, and he had to hire somebody from the outside to put all the systems, to write everything down, to make sure the business is not owner dependent but system dependent. And at the end of the day, he was able to walk away with almost 15 times the EBITDA versus 5. So you're right on the dot. You're right on the money. Absolutely. Once you establish that, once you put systems in place where it's not depending on you to be there, the business is worth a lot more money. And also, the first point that you made, what else can the owner do with it for 4 years? What's the value of
The
4 years?
opportunity cost, yeah.
The opportunity cost, but you're 100% right. I mean, I've spoken to a number of the owners, and one of the questions that I normally get is like, yeah, if I stay for 2.5 more years, 3 more years, I'll get the same money. What's the point of selling? So you're 100% on the dot. Let me ask you another question. How do you help the owners when you're consulting the owner, right? How do you help them make that decision whether it's time to scale up or whether it's time to exit? What are the factors that goes into play, into thinking? I mean, what is the thinking process?
Often go into this very open-handed, so to speak. I don't have a strong outcome I'm looking for. When I approach a business, I'm looking through the lens of acquisition first, yes. And
Right.
often I find business owners who feel stuck think that the only solution is to sell. And so when I encounter a business owner that has gas in the tank, they have ideas, they still have energy around their business, that's one of the first signals I really kind of narrow in on and really hone in to understand, wait, do you really want to sell or are you just stuck? And potentially partnering with somebody could help elevate you and get you unstuck, put you on a different trajectory. And that's where I start getting really curious. I don't really have an outcome in mind, but that's where I get curious. And if I'm talking to somebody who's stuck, but they just are done, they're burned out, they're tired, they want a different challenge, right? Those are some signals then that kind of have me being curious more around the exit scenario, although I still explore both. Does that answer your
Right.
question?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you a follow-up question, actually. What is the most common reason that the business owner wants to sell or thinking about selling? You kind of touched upon it, but I'm sure there's more than that.
There are tons and tons of drivers behind wanting an exit. I think most people will say money and kind of they ball it up in this fuzzy answer around, oh, it's time to retire, time to take a step back, slow down a little bit. What they're really saying though is time. Now, many of them haven't planned for retirement financially. And
Right.
so they see that exiting and selling their business as a means to retirement or their vehicle for retirement. But what I'm hearing is they need time back. And what they're saying is, I want more time for my hobbies or family, or I'm slowing down and those kinds of things.
I keep hearing more and more that recently the baby boomers are retiring at the rate of 10,000 per day. And a lot of those baby boomers happen to own businesses. And apparently, from what I'm learning, those businesses are a lot of times are not for sale, either due to the fact that they don't know how to sell it, they don't want to sell it, or the kids don't want to take over the business. They're just totally not interested in their parents' business. And a lot of those businesses are just really going to get shut down. Do you think it's an opportunity for someone 9 to 5 who's is trying to live that 9 to 5 Monday through Friday world to come in and to purchase a business like that, having access to a tons and tons of businesses, but the follow-up question to that I want to ask is, where can I find those businesses?
I'll start with the first question. Is it an opportunity? And yes, there is tremendous opportunity. Some stats to kind of piece together this opportunity. 14 trillion with a T, trillion
Whoa.
dollars are going to change hands in the next 10 years because of the baby boomers that you're referencing. And many of those boomers are business owners. So massive opportunity. I would take it a step further though. Just being self-serving, there is an obligation, a responsibility for us to step in and transition those businesses and keep that money in the economy, keep that money and those
Correct.
jobs here, right? Because what happens if
Correct.
14 trillion just shuts down their doors and closes down? Massive, massive impact. And so we have not just an opportunity, yes, to make money and maybe escape a 9 to 5, but obligation and responsibility to our country, to our local economies, to the job market, etc., to step in and be a part of the solution. So you
100%.
wove in kind of this idea of a 9 to 5 person stepping into that opportunity. And I do think that it's a tremendous opportunity to up level your income and a lot of different things. And I will say it's a mistake to think that anybody can and should go and buy a business. There are many simple businesses that would lower the risk threshold, but it's not for everyone. And I see people in the searching community often think that buying the business is the most difficult piece. And I would say that's when the real work begins. Having scaled businesses now, that's when the real risk, the real complexity is
Right.
applied, and you're living, truly out there without the safety blanket of many things that a W-2 can't afford you. So
I agree with you,
that's how
man.
I'd respond to your first question.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Not everybody should purchase a business. Business is a very, very strong, a very large commitment. First of all, of your time, of your effort, of your energy, and that time and effort and energy is going to be subtracted from the other places where that time, energy, and effort would normally go to, whether it's your family, your kids, your hobbies. And I can tell you, I've been in business for over 27 years, and during my initial years, my first couple of years, I would say it coincided with a birth of my first child. I missed a lot of days with her. I missed a lot of weekends with her. I missed a lot of times that looking back and kind of evaluating that time, what was more valuable, building a business or spending time with my kid I'll never have that time again. She'll never be 1 or 2 or 3 again. That was very rough. And actually, when time came, and my wife said, we need to try for a second child. And I said, I'm busy and whatever. She said, the only reason we will have a second child if you commit to spending weekends at home or working on Saturday, Sunday. So to me personally, I had to make that commitment, and I'm glad I did. I have 2 beautiful girls, and I love them to death.
I'm so
I'm
glad you
very,
made
very,
that choice for yourself.
I'm very happy that I made that choice. Going back to businesses, you've seen a lot of businesses or a lot of business owners trying to exit. The fact that they want to sell doesn't necessarily mean that the transaction will be completed in the way of a sale. So the question is, what is the most common reasons why the sale does not happen, even when the owner is willing to or contemplating to sell? I'm just curious.
Again, there are a lot of things that I encounter. We've already mentioned one of them, which is I call it the heart price. So if I'm talking about the valuation of their business,
Right.
let's say
Right.
I offer them $1 million, before we even started talking, they already had a heart price. They felt that their business could command $5 million, let's say. And so it really didn't matter. Like, I get the reasoning. You walk me through the finances. It totally makes sense. I understand what the bank's saying, but like I was imagining 4.9 million. So that happens all of the time. The other then is, again, coming back to the risk profile that often is those processes. Because even if you have processes, a lot of times those are built around an amazing, loyal, dedicated person who, if they got abducted by aliens after I bought the business, would also remove nearly all of the value from that business. It would be impossible to replace them because you've built systems around this, unicorn of an individual. Only they could run it like that. And so there's processes, but then there's processes that average people could replicate and perform very consistently. And that's where the real value is. And if you don't have it, that you enter a different profile of risk.
Very interesting. 100%. I've seen, I'm coming from real estate background, mostly commercial real estate. I've seen when deals don't happen, they don't happen for a very similar reasons. They have number in mind. And no matter how long you spend and explain that the bank can only lend XYZ, the property can only appraise at XYZ. I'm sure it's very similar with business acquisitions as well. They have the number in mind, and unless they get that number, I mean, there are a lot of different ways to get to that point if you really want to get creative. And we're not going to dive into that because that's a whole conversation by itself, talking about creative financing, creative purchasing, earnouts and stuff like that. But all right, well, let's go back to this. Where do you see is the biggest opportunity today for the buyers and operators? Well, actually not today, but the next couple of years. And the follow-up to that would be how is AI changing? How do you underwrite businesses? How you source businesses, and how do you operate businesses as well? If you can touch on that, that's a loaded question, I know. But
So I'll start with biggest opportunity.
Biggest opportunity. Let's go.
And for buyers and operators, if you were born after the advent of the internet and the adoption of mobile technology and all of that, you have an advantage over many of these people that are exiting businesses and looking to retire, and that you are digitally native and you're familiar with the capabilities of technology. And so, there's two kinds of trains of thought when people evaluate businesses. Some want to see all of the technology, all of the processes, and that's a great investment. They're going to pay a premium top dollar for that. There's other people that see that as low-hanging fruit, an opportunity to immediately upon post-acquisition to implement some really basic technologies and automations that are going to rapidly accelerate revenue, profit margin, all those great things. And so there's some people that won't look at a business unless it has it. And there's some people that are looking for those businesses that are overlooked by technology and other advancements because they understand there is low-hanging fruit post-acquisition to really drive value.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. As a buyer of the business, because I know you're actively looking to buy as well, right? As a buyer of the business, would you advise, or do you follow your own advice actually? Would you advise to stay in your lane, meaning whatever it is that you know, whatever it is that you're comfortable with, this is where you need to go, this is where you need to acquire a business in that particular industry or niche? Or would you advocate for, hey, it's okay to be business agnostic, industry agnostic, and we can basically, business is a business is a business, and we can run the business as long as the right people are in right positions. What's your take on that?
This has been a struggle for me personally in my search.
Not only you, man. Not only you.
My skill set is very horizontal. It applies to nearly any business. The 3 businesses that I scaled to exits were all very different, and I had no trouble picking up enterprise software and then jumping into residential construction and then pivoting into digital mapping, right? So they're very different.
Very different.
That said, the longer I'm in this, the more I see value in staying in your lane. And the exception that I've found to de-risk that and to accelerate my ability to look at a wider array of businesses is partnerships. Partnerships is the path for me. And so I don't look at anything now unless I have a partner who I trust, who I already have understood that we align from a values perspective, and they have domain expertise, deep expertise in that arena. Otherwise, I don't look at it. Could I learn e-com? Yes, but that would require so much effort. If I want to buy multiple businesses, I want to buy 3 businesses in the next 12 months, learning this specific ins and outs of a business on top of e-commerce makes that highly unlikely and riskier. And then if I go and buy a pet, company, could I learn that? Absolutely. Do I know anything about it? No. So not only am I learning the ins and outs of that market, that location, the employees, but then I'm trying to learn the ins and outs of pet grooming. So I believe that partnerships are the path. And if you're somebody that I want all of it, I don't like partners, it's more headache than it's worth, you're probably not wrong, but you should stay in your lane.
And I was going to say that I was going to quote Uncle Carl, who said many, many times. He said on his death, he said if his wife asked him for the last words of wisdom, he would say, "Stay in your lane." So when he mentioned that on the call, I was actually laughing because um,
You know what?
he's speaking from experience. He's
Yeah.
not guessing. He's speaking from experience. Go ahead.
And if anybody could go out and buy any kind of business and just find that operator, it's him. So
Correct.
people doing this at the highest level are the ones that are sharing their hard-won experience. Something else that's worth thinking that shifted for me when I was in Atlanta and I met his partner, Chris Moore. Chris is talking about the value of solving one problem one problem that 100 people have instead of 100 people's different problems, right? And that's kind of the value of staying in your lane. You get really good at that one niche.
That's one thing. Yes.
And that customer, their need, the market, that's tremendously powerful. And you could still acquire vertically or horizontally from there, but you're building upon that hard-won experience. You're not starting over every time. And
very true.
Something in my brain.
Well, the other thing to think about it is, unfortunately, partnerships are like marriages. Okay, if you get lucky, if you get a right partner, the sky's the limit. However, the opposite is true as well. I've personally went through a number of very I would call it interesting partnerships. Luckily I do have a partner and we complete each other in many different ways, and which is something that I want to talk to you about. And I'll ask you that question after I'm done. But partnerships as a solution to go out of your lane, I think it's a great option, but you really need to be careful who you partner up with and what the other party or what each party actually brings to the table and how do you guys complete each other? What would you be looking for in a partner other than a skill set in a particular industry? If you are to partner up with somebody, just curious.
Yeah, God gave me the gift of a partnership that didn't work out very early on in my acquisition search. And that was a tremendous learning opportunity.
I love that, by the way, the gift of of the partnership that did not work out.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to write it out. I'll steal it from you, man.
It was the best case scenario in that I got to experience that roller coaster that you're just describing of partnership without all of the baggage, because we were able to terminate it amicably and before signing on the dotted line. And this is still, to date, the most lucrative business I've looked at today, I've ever seen on paper. This is wildly, wildly lucrative deal. And what I look for, well, and in the wake of that, is I've compiled lists of things that I want to ask potential partners. And I mentioned values alignment. A lot of those questions are oriented around values. One thing that I would add to that too is follow through, because you and I could agree that, we both value generosity and taking care of employees. Well and good. But then if we're in a partnership and I'm incapable of delivering on that, and that creates, a bad employee experience, it doesn't matter if my value is taking care of employees and creating a great experience for them. My lack of follow through or my inconsistency as a leader or whatever that is degrades it. And so consistency, follow through, those are things that I really look for early on, and recognizing that I'm seeing the best in this individual when we're going through due diligence and offer negotiations. They're struggling to deliver already and it's inconsistent. That to me is something worth paying attention to.
Phenomenal answer. You're 100% correct. What's interesting? Last year I read a book. The book, it was Who Not How. That book literally changed my life. It changed my perspective on so many different things. It opened up my eyes on so many things, because I was unfortunately in a camp where I'm the only one that can do this job. There's no one else that can do it better than me. I can't allocate my certain processes in the business to someone else because I need to follow up and micromanage and stuff like that. So that was one of my, I would say, top 10 books, 10 business books that I've read that changed my life. I want to ask David. David, what's your top book that you read, let's say within last year, that really changed your mind, changed your views on the business book?
I'm going to dovetail into your answer. And I'll tell you, because I've read this book probably twice in 2025, and it is never out of reach for me. And it builds on
I
who.
love that book too.
Yeah, buy back your time. Dan is a mentor to me, and a lot of what I was already advising founders, already advising owners, completely mirrors what he teaches and the lessons that he's distilled in that book. And you mentioned struggling to trust people. That one of the first things that was an unlock for me in that book was 80% as good as what I could do by somebody else is 100% awesome. If you can get into that mindset, like, yeah, maybe it's true that nobody's going to be as good at you at sales or as good at you at delivery or whatever that is. That could be true.
Well,
And
actually, it's not true because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are a lot better and a lot of
right.
things that I'm doing.
Yes.
A lot of people out there, it's just mental hurdle that you got to overcome that mental block and let go. I think let go is one of the things that we need to learn how to do as a business operators and the business owners. David, you made it very easy for me to talk to you, man. And I have a feeling that we could go on and on and on and on because you have a wealth of knowledge. But I want to be respectful of your time. And before we go, um, I want to ask you a fun question. Two
I
fun
hate
questions, actually.
fun.
Two fun questions. So, if David Hurry would not be doing what he's doing right now, what would you do? What would be your ideal, not ideal, alternative life look like?
I think that I would probably be in the coaching space somehow. I find it tremendously rewarding to invest in people who are looking to grow, to expand.
Yeah,
And so I don't know what arena that would be, but I have a feeling I wouldn't stray far from coaching. And one thing that one of my whys behind buying businesses and delving into this arena of is because I want to own my time ultimately at some point and be able to contribute to especially youth organizations,
awesome.
anything from like orphanages to, again, coaching youth that are underprivileged and needing opportunities and stability and things like that. And so probably something in those two camps would be.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, God willing, with your next three exits, it will give you an opportunity to do exactly that. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much for spending time with us. I hope the audience got a lot of golden nuggets that you were willing to share with us. And I appreciate you being here, man. If anybody wants to find you, if anybody wants to reach out to you, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, so I'm very active on LinkedIn, and so David Hori, and then on Instagram as well, Topline Ops, Topline OPS Ops, short for operations. You can find me there, and I try to be easy to find and hard to get in touch with.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. We're definitely going to share your contact info in the link below. Once again, David, thank you for spending your time with us, man. Lots of luck to you in your business acquisition and business consulting business as well. I love having you, and certainly looking forward to have you back for more because there's so many other things that we could have discussed, and I would love to have that opportunity with you. So once again, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Russell. Appreciate you having me out and using your platform to reach others.